He is the only emperor of the Western Empire to do this. All of the other ones are killed or die in some fashion. But he gives up the throne peacefully. He encourages his co-emperor in the West, whose name is, I think it's Maximian. It's something like that. He encourages Maximian to give up the throne as well in 305. Their junior emperors then accede to full emperorship. And of course, a dispute about who the new junior emperors are going to be ensues. Civil war breaks out again. This goes on for 3 years, and then in 308, Diocletian calls everyone together, whacks some skulls about, comes up with a compromise. Situation is safe. People ask Diocletian, why don't you become emperor again? Things were going pretty well when you were emperor. He has retired to a palace of his in Croatia. In, I believe, the town of Split. His ruins still stand, and he's devoted himself to growing cabbages. And so when they ask him to become emperor again, he says, if you could see my cabbages, you would never suggest such a thing. So, it's official, being Roman emperor is inferior to growing cabbages, and also a lot more deadly. So, I'm not going into this, but basically a very lengthy civil war then ensues, because the Tetrarchy doesn't really work, that finally concludes in 324, when Constantine, again you might have heard of, Constantine the Great, becomes sole emperor. So Constantine actually solves the issue that has been prolonging this crisis. He does this in a couple of ways. First of all, he himself converts to Christianity as he's dying. I always thought that would happen. He's baptized right before he dies. I always thought this was just that like some priest dumped water on his head when he was too old and powerless to resist. So it was like, look, the emperor's Christian now. Turns out that Constantine was actually, so being baptized is supposed to cleanse you of all your sins, right? So Constantine was deliberately waiting to be baptized until he was about to die, so that he goes straight to heaven, no matter what he does during his reign, because like, it just washes it all off in the instant of death. So, smart guy. He also builds a huge statue of himself, we won't talk about. He does 2 or 3 important things. The first one, which is the most mundane, is he has lots of children, which means that in contrast with most of the previous emperors, there are many little Constantines who can succeed him after he dies. So the empire has a reasonably stable line of succession for the next 60, 70 years or so, and then problems start up again. We will talk about this. He reforms the military. He changes it from the system where everyone is in the legions to he divides the troops between, I can never pronounce these, comitatenses and limitanae. Limitanae, as in limit, are the frontier soldiers. They sit in forts along here, and if anyone invades, they call holler. The comitatenses are the real soldiers. So what Constantine does here is that he keeps the comitatenses around him at all times, so that there's no opportunity for anyone to get wise and start a revolt. But he doesn't leave the frontier totally undefended. He just has the limitanae there, who are weaker, lower quality soldiers, but good enough to hold enemies at bay while the comitatenses come up. And this works for a while. This works for like 100 years, pretty successfully. The third thing that he does is he moves the capital. So Rome is right here. You may have noticed that the Roman Empire is really big. It includes a lot of places that aren't Rome. And Rome is not exactly strategically situated in terms of getting to those other places. Particularly because this is all kind of a poor area by the 3rd century, because most of the fighting in the 3rd century has gone on through here, trade routes have been disrupted, that sort of thing. And all the money comes from the Persian Empire in the east. So the eastern provinces by this point are much richer. Diocletian had actually moved his capital to Nicomedia, which is like there. So Constantine does him one better. He doesn't want to replace Rome as the capital, so he builds New Rome, which is right here. On the former side of Byzantium, he makes a new senate. He builds a new Roman capital. He actually makes 7 hills in New Rome, because the original Rome was supposed to have been founded on 7 hills. So it's just like Rome, only shiny and new instead of slowly crumbling to bits. Nova Roma is founded in 330. It keeps the name Nova Roma until Constantine dies, and then is renamed Constantinople, which means city of Constantine. And of course, they're so arrogant, these Roman emperors. I love them. And then, of course, later Constantinople becomes Istanbul, and is not Constantine. So that happens in 330. Constantine finally dies in 337. And the Roman Empire basically no longer bears even the slightest resemblance to the empire that we approached in 180. The Western Empire, for complicated reasons, collapses in the early 5th century. There's a story I love, and I wish I could learn more about it, that in December Christmas Day, 405, the Rhine freezes over, which usually doesn't happen because it's a river, it's hard for rivers to freeze. And all the barbarian groups in Germany just walk across. Ordinarily, they would only have been able to cross the bridges. And that this is the issue that leads all of France and stuff to fall to barbarians. The Eastern Roman Empire survives for another 1,000 years until 1453, when it is conquered by Turkish troops under Mehmed II, which I might talk about at some point because that's an interesting story. But yeah, Rome pretty much goes its way. But it gives us, a lot to laugh about. And maybe a lot to feel as well. So, thank you for your patience in listening to me pronounce things.